Welcome in to OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis, coming to you live from snowy Nashville, Tennessee, where we are going to have quite the amount of snow. It is pouring down. I can see it out the windows to my left right now, and I hope all of you stay safe. I know that there are lots of parts of the South that are deluged with snow that do not usually get snow. My best advice to you, if you can, kick up your feet, watch the game tonight between Ohio State and Texas, watch games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of Wild Card Weekend, and just enjoy the football bonanza that we are all fortunate enough to be able to experience. I want to tell you, it's playoff time, now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, where you can win up to 100 times your money, 1,000 times your money even. Prize Picks also offers MasterCard deposits if you have a credit card and want to do that easily to deposit. I gave you my picks yesterday for NFL Wild Card Weekend. George Pickens, more than 54.5 receiving yards. Mike Evans, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Jefferson all to score touchdowns. That's more than 1/2 touchdown. If I am right there, 10-1 payout. Get hooked up right now. Download the app today. Use code OutKick for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code OutKick to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Credit. Notre Dame ran their game last night. I was wrong. I thought that Penn State would win. I thought Penn State had control of this game up 10-0 late in the first half. I thought Penn State had control of this game up 24-17 late in the game. And yet Notre Dame found a way to win, bombing through that last-second field goal to win 27-24. This is the biggest win for Notre Dame since 1988. I really believe that, since they won the national title with Lou Holtz back in 1988. And in the process, Notre Dame has now become a lovable underdog, whether they're going to be going up against Texas or against Ohio State in the national title game that's going to be played in Atlanta. We'll certainly be talking a lot about that come Monday with whatever happens in all the playoff games, both college and NFL. I want to pause. I'll come back to Marcus Freeman in a moment and talk about what he's accomplished at Notre Dame. But I actually want to talk for a moment here about James Franklin. I think James Franklin is maybe the most unfairly criticized head coach in college football, not named Ryan Day, in all of college football right now. And we'll see what happens with Ohio State and whether they win tonight and go on and win a national championship, in which case Ryan Day is going to have the ultimate validation of a national title to respond to all of his critics with. But James Franklin, to me, is beyond a shadow of a doubt a top 10 coach. And I think you can make an argument that he's a top 5 coach in college football based on the results. Certainly if you say, okay, a coach who's been in college football for at least a decade. Think about this. James Franklin has 6 11-win seasons in his 11 years at Penn State. Who's going to do better than that? I get that he loses to top 5 teams, but that's because Penn State is not a top 5 team. I think other than Ryan Day, James Franklin probably the most unfairly criticized coach in all of college football, even late in this game. If anything, you can criticize him for being too aggressive. I think that would be fair. I was watching this game last night, and when Notre Dame punted and Penn State got the football back, I said, now, to be fair, Penn State went off tackle and gained like 12 yards on the first play, which changes the calculus a bit. But before they ran that play, I said I would run the ball a couple of times here. I know you have timeouts, but you're buried deep. I'd be nervous about a turnover. Drew Aller was not making good decisions, I didn't think, with the football, by and large. That's one thing I was wrong about. I thought he would play better than he did. He got bailed out throwing into quadruple coverage on the touchdown when Penn State was able to go ahead with a pass interference call that most of you didn't think should have been called. I do think it was pass interference, but I think it was moronic that Drew Aller got rewarded for that. The interception he threw was awful. Now, to be fair, Riley Leonard threw a couple of awful interceptions as well, but I actually thought Penn State was, for much of the game last night, the better team, and actually should have won. So Notre Dame got the win. Congratulations. They are the underdog now going forward, which no one ever would have believed that Notre Dame could have ever been. And if you break down what happened in that game, I'm going right now to pull up the box score because I want to see what the final numbers were. Penn State couldn't even throw the ball downfield. I mean, they just did not have any major plays that were being made by anyone out there in the field. They were throwing to their tight end, Warren, who's a beast. They were throwing to their backs, but they weren't actually having any success throwing the ball down the field to anyone else. And so as you kind of break all this down, I thought that the better team last night was actually Penn State. And I'm pulling up the box scores to see if that was reflected in the final numbers. I didn't go look at them. Notre Dame had more passing yards. Again, I was wrong on this. I thought Riley Leonard would be far worse than Drew Aller. Drew Aller was frankly awful. But running the football, I mean, Penn State had over 200 rush yards. Usually, if you outgain someone by nearly 100 rushing yards, you win the football. Penn State win the football game. Penn State was the better team on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. They put more pressure, but Notre Dame went 11 for 17 on third down. A lot of that was Riley Leonard making plays. Penn State only went 3 for 11, and Drew Aller, I thought, unfortunately for Penn State fans, lost the game, lost us the over-under. Okay, so that is my take on that game. But I want to play the audio for you of how ESPN, in the immediate aftermath of Notre Dame winning their biggest game since 1988, as they are on the stage at the Orange Bowl, accepting the trophy and preparing to move on and play in the national title game. This was the question. You can see here Molly McGrath, who is the sideline reporter, interviewing Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame's head coach. Guys, give me a text when this audio finishes playing because I don't have my earpiece in. Here is what it sounded like when she asked Marcus Freeman about being the first black head coach to coach for a national championship. Listen.
You are the first black head coach to go to a national championship game in college football. Congratulations. Just hearing that response alone, how much does this mean to you?
You know, I've said this before. I don't ever want to take attention away from the team. It is an honor, and I hope all coaches, minorities, black, Asian, white, it doesn't matter, great people continue to get opportunities to lead young men like this. But this ain't about me, this is about us. And we're gonna celebrate what we've done because it's something special.
Okay, I thought it was a brilliant answer from Marcus Freeman. And they have tried to race bait him leading up to the game, asking him questions about this too. Marcus Freeman's in his 30s, late 30s. For any of you out there that care about his racial background, which I think diminishes his incredible coaching job that he has done since he took over for Brian Kelly, he's half Asian and he's half black. So he's not only the first black head coach who is advancing to the conference championship game, he's also Asian. Not even mentioned. Does half of his lineage, his identity, not matter? According to ESPN, yes. And this is where identity politics leads us, directly away from the meritocracy. Look, Marcus Freeman turned this back and said he feels incredible for the opportunities he gets as a coach to get to coach these kids at Notre Dame. And he wants white, black, and Asian people to have the same opportunity. I bet he would toss in Hispanic if he had the opportunity to address that question again. But look, the story here is Notre Dame got their biggest win since 1988, and their young head coach, who many people questioned whether he was ready for this job, was elevated because Brian Kelly, his boss, actually decided he couldn't win a national championship and needed to move on to LSU because he didn't believe he could put together the team that would be capable of beating an SEC behemoth. And now, in the space of just a few weeks, Marcus Freeman has won against Indiana, beatdown game against a Big Ten team. He followed it up with a beatdown game in many ways against Georgia in New Orleans, a huge win. And now he's followed it up with yet another monster win down in South Florida. That's an incredible accomplishment. He is right now the first coach to ever win 3 playoff games. And to diminish him by his identity, and if you're going to do that, to only talk about one part of his identity, he's the first Asian and the first black coach to actually coach for a national championship. If anything, the Asian part is actually the bigger story because there are tons of black players in college football and coaches. There aren't that many Asians. So if anything, the bigger story here is the Asian part of his identity, but identity shouldn't matter because the great thing about sports is it's the meritocracy. And to me, in this playoff, ESPN didn't play the national anthem or the moment of silence in New Orleans. And now they are following it up in the immediate aftermath of the biggest win for Notre Dame since 1988 by focusing on Marcus Freeman's race at the exclusion of the meritocracy and the incredible accomplishment that he's had. To his credit, I think, Marcus Freeman kind of swatted down that aspect and said, look, there's a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds that are involved in this team. I think it detracts from the team first mentality to be focusing on my identity. And he also talked about all of the other individuals out there of different backgrounds that he hoped gets the same opportunity. So to me, I thought he handled this perfectly, but I thought ESPN yet again bungled what should have been a great moment that many people were celebrating out there with a question that shouldn't and doesn't rank very high in the firmament for most college sports fans. Most sports fans in general are not focusing on Marcus Freeman's race. They're focusing on the incredible accomplishment of Notre Dame to win the biggest game since 1988. Okay, we got a bunch of other stories that I want to hit, and I got to be fast here because I'm going to be on with Martha McCallum talking about Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg and the revelations he just shared on Joe Rogan's podcast here in about 30 minutes. I'll be on Fox News. But I want to hit several other stories out there. Yesterday, I told you that Carson Beck had entered into the transfer portal. And on yesterday's program, I said it was likely that he would end up at Miami. He today announced that he is, his former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, he announced today that he is, in fact, transferring to Miami. I said the reason why I thought he would go there, some of you focused on the girlfriend, but I actually think what the reason why he's going to go there is they're doing a good job now, Miami is, of saying, hey, Carson, you can be the next Cam Ward. Transfer in here. We've got a lot of talent. We'll make you look great. We'll develop you. You can go and become a first-round pick, and in the process, we'll give you, reports are, $4 million to be the quarterback next year. This is important. I told you this about Diego Pavia. I talked about it. I think it could become a story with Quinn Ewers. There are now players in both college football and college basketball who can make more money staying in college football than they can going to the NFL or leaving college basketball and going to the NBA. This is unprecedented. We've never had a situation like this. I don't believe Carson Beck would have been that high of a draft pick. I think he is going to make more money playing college football next year than he would have in the NFL. It's a holy cow moment. And I've told you this was coming. I think Carson Beck, again, reportedly getting $4 million for 1 year from Miami. Credit to Miami. That seems to be their process. Notre Dame has done the same thing, taking 1-year transfers and plugging them in at quarterback, veterans. It's worked now with Riley Leonard and Miami and Notre Dame to get to the title game. It worked last year for Miami to be really good on the offensive side of the ball. There was nothing Cam Ward did that kept them out of the playoff. It was actually their defense collapsing. And now they're doubling down on that game plan by going out and getting Carson Beck and adding him to Miami. This is a big story. I probably need to write on it, but it is emblematic of the massive sea change that we are seeing occur in college football. All right, several other stories out there. It's time now to acknowledge. These are all sports stories that I'm hitting. I'm going to dive into TikTok. I'm going to dive into the Trump sentencing, Zuck on Rogan. Still got to hit all those. But it's time to acknowledge something. I don't think there's an argument to the contrary anymore. Deshaun Watson, who reports are has torn his Achilles tendon again, retorn it, will likely now miss the entire 2025 football season. He is a combination, this is crazy, of the worst trade in history. Adam, if you'll let me know all that the Browns had to give up to get Deshaun Watson from the Texans. This is, I think, both the worst trade in sports history. I think it's worse than the Herschel Walker trade now. And it's also the worst contract in sports history. Deshaun Watson got $230 million guaranteed. I believe he has only played so far for the Browns 19 games as the starter. I'm not sure he ever starts another game for the Browns. They gave him $230 million. My recollection is they gave up multiple first-round picks. They have handcuffed the future of this franchise by the money that they have guaranteed him. And they gave him at the time what was the absolute most highest guaranteed contract in the history of football. And so it's the worst contract and the worst trade. Here's what the Texans got: a first-round pick, a fourth-round pick, another first-round pick, a third-round pick, another first-round pick. They traded back and got a second-round and a sixth-round pick on top of that, and a fourth-round pick. So as a result, right now, the Houston Texans got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, plus out of the Deshaun Watson contract, and the Browns got Deshaun Watson and a sixth-round pick. This is the worst trade and the worst contract in the history of American pro sports. I don't think there's even an argument to the contrary. I'm sorry, Cleveland Brown fans. You now draft second overall and probably are going to be in the quarterback sweepstakes race. By the way, Kenyon Green, Damian Pierce, Will Anderson, Tank Dell, Kamari Lassiter, Jamal Hill, Caden Bullock, all now on in their first, second, or third year, young contract players, on the Houston Texans in exchange for Deshaun Watson, which is pretty crazy to think about as you kind of look forward and look at that haul. It's the worst trade and the worst contract in the history of American pro sports. Venu Sports scrapped. I need to talk about this more. I discussed with you FUBU and the fact that Disney was buying FUBU, and how to me it was even more of an evidence that, or FUBO, is it FUBO, not FUBU? FUBU was like the black apparel company, right? FUBO, I think, is what I'm trying to talk about. FUBO is the streaming service. Venu Sports was supposed to be offering you ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers Discovery sports programming that you could buy without needing a cable or satellite subscription. It now is being tossed on the scrap heap. ESPN is going to release its own sports streaming app, which you will be able to subscribe to without needing cable. That potentially is going to be the death knell in many respects to a lot of cable subscriptions. So that is ongoing, and that is occurring. Okay, I want to play this audio for you. The LA fires continuing to burn. There are all sorts of awfulness associated with what the people of LA are dealing with. I love Los Angeles. I love LA. I have spent lots of time out there. Fox Sports is out there. Probably outside of Nashville, I would say I probably have more friends in the Los Angeles area than any other metropolitan area anywhere in the country. And I've spent a lot of time out in LA on the Fox lot, working out there. I really do love the city of Los Angeles, filled with a lot of fabulous people. I think they have made awful decisions about their governor, about their mayor, Gavin Newsom, and also Karen Bass. I think both of those people should be removed. I think they have failed utterly in their response to the fire. But also, the LA Fire Department allowed itself to be taken over by woke DEI policies. You may have heard Adam Carolla testifying that he wasn't able to be hired as a firefighter because he was male. He had to white male. He had to wait 7 years to be able to try to become a member of the LA Fire Department. Here is, I believe this woman's name is Christine Larson. She makes almost $400,000 a year. Guys, correct me if I get any of this wrong. As the Equity Bureau Chief of the LA Fire Department. Now, you might well be asking, why in the world does a fire department have an Equity Bureau Chief? And why does that fire person make nearly $400,000 in taxpayer funds? I don't have an answer for you, but listen to this individual when she is asked, hey, could you carry my husband out in the event that there was a huge fire? Listen to this.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
What? Take this outside of the fire department, okay? Pretend that you, let's say your husband or your wife needed to have open heart surgery. Imagine if the doctor said, can I operate on your heart? Well, you put yourself in some really difficult straits. Man, your husband put himself in a really bad position. If he needs me to have open heart surgery on him, I don't know if I can do it or not. That's basically what this person is saying when asked, can you do the job of being a fireman? Look, this is when DEI crumbles. You know what the first thing that happened in Ukraine was when Russia invaded? Every man 18 to 50 wasn't allowed to leave the country because Ukraine had to mobilize warriors to fight. And they also just started passing out guns. All of a sudden, gender identity mattered a lot. Whether you identified as a woman, if you were a man, didn't cut it. All men, because men are bigger, stronger, faster than women as a group. Some women are bigger, stronger, and faster than men. There are wimpy men. But as a group, men are bigger, stronger, and faster than women. Gender mattered a great deal as soon as war had to happen. Gender matters a great deal when there are fires and there are people that need to be saved. The idea that you would have a job that you're being paid nearly $400,000 to do, and you don't have the physical capability to save people who are in a fire is ridiculous. And the fact that LA would decide that they want to advertise this as a good thing in some way is mind-boggling to me. It's not only that this fire person said it, it's that they decided we need to advertise this. Ha ha, I can't do the job. Your husband just put himself in a tough spot by what? Being in a house that caught on fire and he can't escape? And he needs the help of a fireman to be able to get out? I'm sorry, that's not his fault. That's the very essence of what we want a fireman to do. Kick a door in, get inside, grab innocent people who need to be saved, and get them out. White, black, Asian, Hispanic. I don't care what color you are. I want a badass to come and help save me or my family if for some reason I'm trapped in a house that's burning down, or an apartment, or a condo, or a commercial building. This is not difficult. I can't believe this is where we are, but this is where DEI leads us. This is where woke politics leads us. Gavin Newsom can't do the job. Karen Bass can't do the job. The people of LA and California, many of whom are fabulous, are suddenly recognizing, wait a minute, we elected people who are morons and cannot help us in our time of most desperate need. Maybe, just possibly, being able to do the job should matter a lot more. Okay, a couple of other things out there. I'm going to be talking about this in a bit. I want to do a deep dive, and maybe I'm going to do this on Tuesday or so of next week on the Supreme Court TikTok hearing. My perspective on TikTok is maybe not aligned with any one particular political party, but I'm going to do a deep dive on why I think it matters. My perspective on this is as follows. Foreigners shouldn't own major media companies in the United States. That is my position. In the same way that I wouldn't want a foreigner to own the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, I believe that our media companies in the United States, and I believe TikTok is a media company, should be owned by American citizens. That's point one. Point two, I believe that we should not allow Chinese media companies to compete in our country when China does not allow American media companies to compete in their country. In other words, Twitter, Facebook, Google, many of our biggest and most influential media companies in the United States are not able to compete in China. Why should we allow Chinese companies to compete in our media market and not allow American media companies to compete in China's market? There's no reciprocity, and therefore I don't believe that that should be allowed, which is why my solution is all of the American assets of TikTok, if the company wants to continue to work and exist in the United States, simple solution, should be bought by American ownership. Just like the New York Times, just like the Washington Post, just like Fox News, just like the Wall Street Journal. You know, Rupert Murdoch is an American citizen partly because of the media companies that he owns, because a lot of different companies out there and different countries require that in order to own property in the United States, you have to become an American citizen as well. So Rupert Murdoch has been an American citizen since 1985. And if TikTok were owned by an American citizen, I would be fine with that. But again, that to me doesn't seem like a very difficult proposition. That's how I would rule going forward. That would be the framework under which I would consider all of this in the United States if I were sitting as a Supreme Court justice. Finally, and maybe I need to do a deeper dive on this, I'm going to push my discussion of Zuckerberg and what he said on Joe Rogan's show, because I'm about to talk about that with Martha McCallum on Fox News in 10 minutes if you want to put on Fox News. Imagine that you have been sitting around waiting for 9 years for Trump to be held criminally responsible for something in the United States. You finally got a conviction in the Alvin Bragg case in New York City, and Judge Merchan sitting today, and he announces there is going to be no punishment at all. The punishment is an unconditional discharge. What was the entire point of all of this? I'm going to do a deep dive on this maybe on Tuesday as well. I say Tuesday because there'll be a lot of NFL games to react to on Monday and also another college football game to react to. So I'm going to star these and make sure that I have longer form discussions with all of you on them. I believe ultimately the convictions in New York City are going to get tossed. I think this is a junk case. I think it's going to get tossed. But it speaks to the illegitimacy of this case that in the end, we went through all of this, New York City, Atlanta, South Florida, D.C. The only conviction that happened was in New York City, and there was zero punishment. And in 10 days, Donald Trump's going to raise his right hand and be sworn in as the next president of the United States. This is ultimately a win for the American public, because I think it fundamentally repudiates the idea of using lawfare, trying to put your chief political rival in prison for the rest of his life. The American voting public rejected it. It's one reason I believe Trump won. But if you were out there and you've been saying, oh, they're going to get him, you've been watching MSNBC, you've been watching CNN, you allowed your brain to be rotten with Trump hate, you finally get the conviction. You finally get Trump sitting in front of the judge to receive his punishment, and the punishment is there's no punishment at all. That's where we are. A lot of people have broken brains, and in fact, far from a punishment. As a result of all of this, I believe Trump is going to be in the White House for 4 more years. You got played. If you listen to legacy media, if you watch legacy media, shouldn't you be asking yourself, how was I so wrong? And how were all these media figures I listened to for the last 9 years telling me Trump was going to jail, Trump was going to be convicted of crimes, there were going to be huge consequences for all these things that were trumped up and not in reality actual crimes, in my opinion? And then you finally get a conviction in New York City, and the judge says, yeah, unconditional discharge, there is no punishment at all. How in the world do you ever consume any of those media again? I will dive into this more. I'll talk more about Zuck on Rogan and the Biden COVID pressures, the censorship regime, and why I think it was so significant. In 8 minutes, I am scheduled to be on Fox News discussing it. I will see you then. I'll also be scheduled to be on Sean Hannity tonight with you guys as well. So still a lot of media to come. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for supporting us this week. We'll be back on Monday. I am Clay Travis, DBAP unless you need to SBAP. This has been OutKick, the show.